In this lesson, we're going to learn how to solve inequalities. First, let's do a quick review of the inequality signs and their meanings. This symbol first means less than, as in 4 is less than 7. The second symbol, read left to right, means greater than, as in 10 is greater than 3. This symbol means less than or equal to, as in x is less than or equal to 14. So the value of x is going to be the number 14 or something smaller than 14. And our last symbol means greater than or equal to, as in x is greater than or equal to 14. So the value of x is going to be the number 14 or something larger than 14. One way to help you remember these symbols is that the small pointy end should always be pointing to the small number, and the large open end should be directed at the larger number. Some people learned this a long time ago as the alligator eats the big number, or maybe even the Pac-Man eats the big number. But if the bigger number being larger, it needs the larger side of the symbol to eat it. So that might be just one way to help you remember it. So let's start with solving inequalities. To solve an inequality, such as 4 plus 3x is greater than 20, you use the same algebraic properties as you would when solving an equation. Only exception is on your last step, where you either divide or multiply to get a positive variable. When you divide or multiply by a negative number, you must reverse the inequality sign. Let's go through and try this sample problem. So in this case, I'm going to realize that I have some distribution I need to do on the right side. So I'm going to start by distributing my minus 2 through the parentheses. So I have my negative 2 greater than or equal to 3. So negative 2 times 2, that's minus 4a. Negative 2 times plus 4 is minus 8. So now I can add in my numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 3 minus 8. So that's going to get me negative 5 minus 4a. Bring down my symbol and my negative 2. Now there's two ways to go through it from this point. I'm going to start by trying to move my a to the other side, because it's easier for people to read the inequality signs if the variable's on the left side. So to do that, I'm simply going to add 4a to both sides and move my plus or my minus 2 over to the other side. So this gives me 4a is greater than or equal to, and I have negative 5 plus 2, so that becomes negative 3. Now my last step is to divide by 4. Now since this is not a negative 4, I don't need to reverse the symbol, and I have a is greater than or equal to negative 3/4. So now we have our answer, negative 3/4. Now let's talk about notation and graphing the inequality. Let's take our x is greater than or equal to negative 3/4 answer. This is called inequality notation because it uses an inequality sign. To graph this on a number line, we will use dots and arrows. The less than or equal to or greater than or equal to symbol, we use solid dots to show that it equals that value. With the less than or greater than symbol, we use open dots to show it comes close but never actually equals that number. So if I were to go ahead and graph this, I'm going to start at negative 3/4. So I'm going to take my number line, starting at 0, and I'm going to go down to negative 3/4. And since this is greater than or equal to, I'm going to fill it in with a solid dot. Now it's greater than, and the arrow of the symbol is pointing to the right. Another reason to try to get your variables on the left, it makes it easier for people to graph. So my arrow is going to point the same way. And the reason I'm using an arrow is to show that it goes on forever up through infinity, because there is no endpoint to this. So let's take a look at this and talk about interval notation. Interval notation is another way to represent ranges of possible answers for an inequality. X is greater than or equal to negative 3/4, written in interval form, looks like this. Square bracket, negative 3/4, comma, infinity, open circle, what we call the open parenthesis. So an interval means it's between -3/4 and infinity. An interval meaning between. Interval notation has similar properties as in graphing. The greater than or equal to or less than or equal to uses a square bracket. If we just use the greater than or less than symbol, we use the curved parenthesis symbol. Intervals are always written with the smaller number on the left, just like on a number line. Now you're going to try. You're going to solve this inequality. 5 minus 2 parenthesis x plus 3 is greater than x minus 3. Once you've completed solving it, you will then write it in interval notation and graph it on the below number line. So pause the video, try the problem, and when done, restart the video and we'll go through the answer together. So let's begin with the solving. Again, I have some distribution I'm going to need to do on this problem. So I'm going to take my 5 and I'm going to distribute my minus 2 through the parentheses. So I get minus 2x minus 6 is greater than x minus 3. So on my left side, I have 5 minus 6, so that's -1 minus 2x is greater than x minus 3. I'm going to move my x's, so they're all on the left, and I'm going to move, my whole numbers to the right. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So we basically end up with -3x is greater than -2. So at this point, I need to divide both sides to get the x by itself. So here is an example of dividing both sides by a negative. So since that number in front of the x is negative, I am going to need to reverse my symbol, and -2 over -3, of course, is going to turn into positive 2/3. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in interval notation. It says less than. So all of my values are going to be smaller than 2/3. So my 2/3 is going to go on the right side of my interval. Now, since there is no endpoint to the left, it just goes on forever, we're going to use the negative infinity symbol. And since this is not an equal to symbol, we're going to use the curved parenthesis, and the infinity symbol will always have the curved parenthesis because we can never actually equal infinity. So let me go ahead and graph 2/3. So on my number line, I got 0, and there's some 1, 2, 3 parts here. So I'm going to go to 2/3. Now in this case, I'm going to use an open circle. So I'm not going to fill it in because I'm not using a greater than or equal to symbol. Now, since it's pointing to the left, I'm actually going to take my arrow and I'm going to go left to show that it's everything close to 2/3, but not quite, and everything to the left of it.